Hello everyone, welcome back to this afternoon session. I hope that you all feel more energized now that we had this refreshment break. And we will start this session with the theme Certification as a Driver for Destination Stewardship. We have as our moderator Randy Durband, CEO of GSTC, and as our members of the panel, we have Stewart, CEO of EarthCheck, Albert Salman, President of GreenDestinations, Luigi Mazzaglia, General Manager of Vireo, Catie Burlando, Local Development Officer at ETIFOR, and Guy Bigwood, Managing Director of Global Destination Sustainability Index. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much and good afternoon. Well, hopefully we get Luigi to join us here shortly. So we have a small stage and a big panel, so we decided to pre-seat and be in place here so we don't damage anything coming and going, so we're right in place. I'm going to really just truly play a moderator role. I don't have an opening presentation myself. I'll just cue this up and get right into our experts on this topic. No worries. So the goals of this session is we consider certification at destinations. Is certification at destinations indeed a driver for good destination management, for destination stewardship? And we'd like to kind of think about three core themes of, what are the benefits of destination certification? What are the operational challenges to get there? And then also weave into this, how can destination certification be distinguished from awards, from other things that are being talked about? And so if you could kind of weave those things in. So we do indeed have a very distinguished group in the world of certifying destinations as sustainably managed. We know of just 5 or 6 entities in the world that are doing this. Well, there's a few in the national programs that are kind of getting going, but just very few that are doing it broadly outside of a national program, internationally and so forth. And we've got some of the key players right here. So Stewart's organization and Albert's organization have been doing it for a while in many places. Our friends at the end from Italy, Luigi Mazzaglia and Catie, have done one destination in Italy and looking at others. So they've got some very practical experience they're going to share with us. And Guy Bigwood has developed a scoring system and benchmarking for basically municipalities. So it's not a certification per se, but we're going to hear how that ties in. So we're going to start with the 2 gentlemen who have been at the head of organizations that have been doing certification of destinations in many places around the world with a good deal of experience. We're going to start with them and go from there. So Stewart, if you could start us off. And do we have his PowerPoint ready to go? And all the PowerPoints are on one deck. Continuous flow.
Okay, we rock and roll. Can you hear me? So what I was asked to do is to have a look at the benefits and challenges of destination certification. And particularly for Anna and David Simmons, I guess my point is that really destination stewardship is more critical than ever before at a destination level. I've got 4 things that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to give you a very simple background on what EarthCheck is and what EarthCheck's been doing. We've been in the market in the business of sustainability for 30 years. The case studies I have for you today are organisations and destinations we've been working with for the past 20 years. And what I guess we should be doing more is sharing some of those stories, because they're the same challenges that we all face. The second thing I'm going to do is be a bit to prompt what are the key issues facing us globally and as an industry, and what does that mean for destination certification. But I guess my message there is the future is now. It's not tomorrow, it's not next year. The issues in front of us need to be addressed immediately, and we'll have an interesting discussion about that, and I want that to prompt you for the rest of the, I guess, the meeting. The third thing is that, and we often talk about this in sustainability, is you can't manage what you don't measure. And I want to walk through the essence of good performance measurement and what that means to certification, what that means also organisations being able to match and marry their performance over time. And I'm going to finish with some good news stories about what people have been doing. And I'll use some stories from Iceland and from New Zealand, and that's about as much as I can squeeze in to the forum. So I guess from EarthCheck's perspective, we've been in the market for 30 years. We started as, in fact, we still have the company, the National Centre for Tourism in Australia. It's the first National Centre for Tourism, and with government put together the first university professor for tourism, and Phil Pearce is still, in fact, North Queensland, the first research centre and the first survey in tourism, and that morphed in then to a cooperative research centre for sustainable tourism. And that lasted for about 10 years. During that period, the benchmarking and the patent for EarthCheck was created in '99, and that still is what we have today and have taken that to market. And when the CRC finished its journey as a research centre, it then morphed into two bodies, one of which was the non-for-profit EarthCheck Research Institute, and Dave Simmons is the professor here today, and the other is the profit-for-purpose EarthCheck, which is what does benchmarking and certification. So the reality is today we work in 70 countries across the globe, across 32 sectors, not just in destinations. We work in the green and the brown, right across the supply chain from convention centres through to, in fact, transport entities. And our products cover everything from how to design and construct a building, because one of the, I guess, the messages in good certification is it's holistic. We need to think about the whole circle, not just in a linear way, and that's where the future's going, and that's what, in fact, the destination standard does ask for. Good design gives you good outcomes operationally, and let's face it, we're in the circular economy. And I guess that leads to this point. So at a destination level, our expectation is we think in a circular level across the supply chain. All of those elements need to be picked up in the destination management standard, and the expectation is that you're only, as a visitor, you arrive at an airport, your footprint starts the moment you get on that plane, and it doesn't leave until you actually get back in that plane. All of that needs to be picked up, and the standard was developed to ensure that that footprint follows you and can be measured on a meterage basis for every visitor in that destination. So where are we in market? Well, I guess it's not business as usual. It's not business as usual. Climate change is a reality, and we now need to understand in the certification platform, it's not just about measuring carbon and managing it, it's about adaptation, and we don't do that well in tourism, but we're going to have to start thinking about what that means at an operational level and a destination level as we move forward. It's the carbon economy. It mightn't feel like we're in the carbon economy, but I can tell you that your finance sector already has it in its balance sheets. It's a risk issue in terms of your assets. We sit on those assets, it's with us now. We need to be measuring now in terms of that carbon platform. It's not a discussion, this is a reality about how we need to be reporting. And we're in the experience economy, and we do accept the fact that experience is about we want to form an emotional connection with the visitor and the places that we visit, but the reality is you can't have a signature experience if it's not sustainable. So I guess the point about having a destination standard and a supply chain is everyone is responsible within that supply chain in terms of their footprint. It's not just about the sell and the sale. Consumer expectations changed overnight, and it's not just the Greta effect, it's the expectation you have a consumer now. I've been saying this to my clients for 10 years. They're going to come and they're going to knock and say, just show me exactly what you are doing, destination, and what you're doing as an operator. And they're here. EarthCheck in the last 2 months has had a 15% increase in inquiries from customers about our clients. And I've always said to our clients, the good thing about certification is be honest, very honest about what you're doing, and be pragmatic about where you're going to, but the consumer is going to be asking you these questions. And it's about reputation management. And I guess most importantly, your communities expect it, hence we heard about the Azores this morning in their destination standard. It wasn't about sustainable tourism per se, it was about lifestyle and the destination that they wanted to create. And that's what I guess the whole issue about management is and why it's certified, so you can report to it. And the other thing is, I guess we talk about the green economy, we're actually in the blue economy. The blue economy is about innovation and technology and disruption, and it's about the circularity of how we manage our waste and our water and our energy. That is, in fact, the future. Let's not get caught up with the last 10 years of I guess, discussion. So there are 4 pillars, and ultimately the destination standard is underpinned by your community, but most importantly, and I guess we always say this at these forums, we want more youth, we want kids involved because they're the future. That's why education is critical. It's about your operators and capacity building. It's about being able to bring your big infrastructure along. So in tourism, it's the brown stuff that's just as important as the green stuff. This is your supply chains, and it's also about your overarching management. So that's how we look at our destination standard, all those 4 pillars, and I guess community being the most critical. And we say this forever, but you can't manage what you don't measure. But I guess what we forget to tell people about is simple measurement is really about providing a rallying point for people to come together. And you heard a little bit about that this morning in terms of the green team and operators, and also a place for celebration. So good sustainability, and particularly in a certification perspective, is a celebration of where you stand in your business plan, a celebration of where you stand against your peers, and a celebration of where you stand on best practice. That's why we do performance-based measurement, and that's why it's a key part of how we do our certification. And the reality is, doesn't matter if you're small or large, you need to be measuring lifetime, all the core things, you know, your water, waste, energy, and social commitments and what you're doing. And the reality is we do that because that's just like a report card you do for your kids. It's a health check. And you know the good thing about data, it keeps you honest and there's nowhere to run once that data's out there. And the case studies I've got for you very quickly will show you that they don't all get it right. And how they see it at a destination level is it's always a basis of how we're going and how we can improve and what's our benchmarking telling us about our performance. So we'll start with, I guess, the Icelandic people. It's been a 15-year journey, 5 local authorities and a national park. But how good's that? So your national park is working for 5 local authorities. They've done very well with water. They've always struggled with waste. But having said that, in this period of time, they've still reduced waste by 40%. They got away. They were the first plastic economy in Iceland, and they still struggle with the context of next steps and taking waste out of those dumps on the island. It's a big issue for them. We'll look at Kaikoura. Kaikoura has been a 20-year discussion point. And I guess Kaikoura is almost a best practice model of waste management, almost zero goes to landfill. And have a look at that. It didn't happen overnight. That happened over well, in that case, that's a 16-year period of progress. So wouldn't it be lovely if we could do things within 18 months, but I promise you, it's a year-on-year progress that you have to work forward with. And that's exactly what they've been able to achieve. In the Kaikoura example, and I think this is a really important one of their problems was water. But you know, the issue wasn't tourism, it was agriculture. But tourism brought agriculture to the table, okay? So one of the fundamentals and the benefits of having a sustainability platform and certification is everyone has to come to the table and be part of the solution. And I don't think we do that well enough, because ultimately, when we look at tourism, we look at it as the visitor economy. All aspects of that have to come together. It's not just the visitor side of it, which is a demand sequence. And ultimately, I've put up this quote because this is how the Icelandic people see it, and I think it's pretty similar to most destinations. The idea of certification is not to state perfection has been achieved, but you are constantly working towards improvements. And there wouldn't be a day goes by with our communities that we talk to them, and the issues are, it's a 3-year cycle. We have a new mayor, and it's a top-down, bottom-up discussion. The moment you've got your champions, they move, and it becomes a crossover between who's the one you're looking for to drive things forward. So what do we know? It's forever you need to start building people into that network as your champions. And ultimately, I guess I thought I'd finish with this because I think it's a real critical one on the basis of the general discussion on sustainability, but particularly in destination management. It's not a logo. It's never been a logo, and it's certainly not a popularity contest. You know, in the consumer, I can tell you, is actually well equipped to ask the right questions, and they are going to come. And I guess to a certain extent we do benchmarking and certification and celebration of our performance because it's what we do, and it's a way of life that we need to take forward, not for ourselves but for our kids. And that's the essence of, I guess, where I saw the positives and the challenges of where destination certification currently is. And guess what? We learn every day, and every day I learn more from my clients than I'll ever be able to share with them because they're finding things at the coalface. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will use Slido in this session for later on, so you can be thinking about your questions throughout. So Albert, could you tell us about Green Destinations and talk about the distinction between the certification you do and the awards program that you work with?
Thanks, Randy. Indeed, I've been asked to clarify why we are so often using the term awards, because we are...
You need to stay close to the microphone.
Okay.
Yeah. Not that close.
Not that close, okay. Not sitting on it. Okay. Well, I'm actually glad I'm not sitting anymore, because standing here is a lot better than in that chair, I can tell you. Somebody wants to try? Go ahead.
And I can't move, by the way.
Oh, no, you can't move, okay. No, you can't move anyway. Here you can move. Okay, right. So, I'll clarify why. So, a short introduction about myself. It's probably not a recommendation that I tell you that I'm only involved in Green Destinations for 5 years, and that the organization is not older even than that. Probably a better introduction is that I'm having a 35 years experience in coastal destination management in Europe for EU programs that deal with, to a large extent, have dealt with tourism, because in Europe a lot of the coastal developments are driven by tourism, and then I developed in that context the Quality Coast Certification Program, which is the basis for Green Destinations. So it's a bit more older than that. In the meantime, we used the last 5 years to get the system running, making use of the Quality Coast certification experience, and create a standard that was recognized by GSTC in 2016 already, I think, and then we continue to develop a certification system that has been accredited, and we are working now with more than 200 destinations. That's partly because also we are running the top 100 awards program, and I'll tell you a little more about that later. So our message to destinations is a response to what we are usually asked by the, let's say, the vice mayor for tourism. Not the destination manager, because the destination manager doesn't want, per se, more visitors. But usually politicians do. And they ask us, how many more visitors are we going to get if we are certified, or we are participating in your system? Then we say, you're going to get, don't worry, you're going to get more visitors anyway, because tourism is growing by 5% per year. So don't worry about that. What you have to worry about is maybe over tourism, and look at Rome, look at Venice, look at Barcelona, look at Amsterdam. Do we want to become like that? And then they quickly agree that indeed they want to go something else in terms of destination. So, and then also they realize that that you can't, and that's also what we tell them, you can't attract visitors by saying we are a sustainable destination. You have to communicate your values and appeal to people that are indeed unaware sustainably. And I learned that in the previous session, thanks to Javier. And that sustainability is, without naming it like that, is important to every destination, because if you have travelers and they see unsustainable things, let's say litter or heritage being on the threat, they will give negative reviews, and they'll tell their families and their networks, don't go there because you can better go somewhere else. So it's important to every destination, and every destination can benefit, and maybe should benefit, from the things that we bring through the certification process, and everything which is around that. Green policies, that's of course the criteria, the standard. Solutions, service providers, we also encourage our destinations to not only improve their policies and their management systems, but also to get their business sector on board. Because as Jana said this morning, rightfully, you can't call yourself Green Destinations Gold or Certified Destination if you don't even have a certified green offer. So, and only that way you can receive green travelers. How are you going to receive green travelers if you've got no certified offer? So it all is the same story that I think you're acquainted with already, and this is a slide to clarify why we say that green is a way to use other words for responsible and sustainable. So these first letters symbolize that word. This is a slide to allow me to indicate that, yes, we have a small office in Leiden in the Netherlands, but Green Destinations is a partnership of people around the world that actually do the work. In Leiden, and including myself, we have a few people doing the back office, making the platform, organizing the trainings, but the work is done around the world by people speaking languages and working with the destination in their language, in their context, and with their understanding of the issues and how to solve them. And of course, like the others, actually there's nothing new compared to what Stewart already said. You can use this, and Randy yesterday, you can use this standard for anything. Also, training is even missing. We also use it for these purposes, and it's a way to take destinations by the hand and say, okay, if you follow this and study them and take trainings and support, you will improve in all fronts, not only through certification, but also through our awards. You can make a quick scan, you make a self-assessment, you can make an agenda for improvement, and we used also for the top 100 competition. So a few words on why we use also the word awards. Of course, only if you're fully certified, if you comply to all the criteria of the standard, then you can be recognized. We give you the label GreenDestinations certified. But it can take between 3 and I just heard 15 years, and that's indeed the experience, before you can get certified, depending on the place on the globe you are. Maybe it's not even possible to become certified ever in your lifetime, but to recognize progress, we developed this award program in which we have benchmark awards from bronze, silver, gold, platinum, reflecting the percentage of the criteria that you are meeting. So it's also following the same certification process, so we have a third-party independent audit resulting into, if it's, let's say, 80% compliance with standard, you're getting the gold award, which is kind of a certification level, if you'd like. But in marketing, it appears that a destination management and marketing organization actually says, no, I find the words quality gold award an excellent term. You can use it because you can connect a story with it. We got the award because. And certification is something which requires more explanation. So I think it's useful. And also we use the award levels for the selection of destinations into the Sustainable Top 100 Destination Competition. So every destination that complies for at least 80% compliance, that's a gold award level, in any of these programs is qualifying automatically for the Sustainable Destinations Top 100 competition, including, of course, all the GD certified, but that's not enough. There are not enough in our system of these destinations to make a top 100. So for the rest, and that's almost 40, we have a partnership of about 13 organizations that each of them helps destinations or encourages destinations also to nominate themselves for the top 100 through also a self-reporting, sustainability reporting that's checked by jury members from these same organizations. And that's following an application procedure that includes those issues, and I'm going to read that. And they are evaluated in an independent way on a part of the 100 criteria that we have, only 30 of the 100 in the first year, and then they can at least have this participation and selection in the top 100 for 1 year without being fully assessed and certified in third party on all the 100 criteria, but within 1 or 2 years, it's a necessity. It's the only way to be selected for this top 100 competition. You see a picture of, and of course the Azores is in the middle, so they've been in since the beginning, since 2014. What happens then after the selection of the top 100? There is a ceremony at the GreenDestinations event, and then everybody tries to be there to collect their certificate and make some noise in the media and the social media. And the second step is actually that from the 100, we ask them to submit good practice stories in sustainable destination management. And these stories are largely the decisive factor for the selection of the top 100 destination awards that we organize together with ITB and is hosted by ITB. And the lead award is the Earth Award, ITB Earth Award. But also we have the best of culture and communities, nature and ecotourism, best of seaside, and even best of a continent. Together they can be up to 10 award winners, and that is for them a nice opportunity to be on the stage in the award hall of ITB, and that is then for them one of the moments that they can really get big publicity. And Bhutan, for example, said, okay, we have never got such big publicity in newspapers for 10 years because we got this ITB Earth Award in Berlin. So final slide. This is a summary of the impacts of the combination of these programs. Many more than only the people, the destinations that are involved in our certification program. are actually, we can reach them through the competition. In that way, they can actually learn about our guidance, sustainability guidance for the destinations. And in this way, we try to create a community, bringing them together in several moments in ITB, but also in the Green Destinations event. And that creates peer-to-peer learning, of course, from your colleagues, like many of you do here today and tomorrow. And because we have benchmark awards, we prevent that that if you're just having no certification within 3 years, that the next vice mayor or mayor says, oh, you haven't, the previous government, local government, haven't received anything, haven't achieved anything, so we stop the program. But if you have a bronze award or a silver award, then the Destinations Manager can say, oh, we're going for a gold award next year, which is a bigger guarantee in practice also that the program is getting continuity in the destination. So the benchmark award is actually helping to get continuity and helping a destination manager to continue to participate in the program, even if they're not yet certified in 10 years. And of course, being on the stage at ITB is a good thing to work for. So the competition for 2020 is open, so you're still able to go for ITB, the main stage, until somewhere in January. So, thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. So, two global perspectives on certifying various destinations. We're going to turn to one specific destination now in Italy, and this is going to come as a team approach here with Catie and Luigi. And so what we'd like to get from you is how this has worked from Luigi's organization as a certification body, and Catie working for the municipality. If you could just talk to us about the interplay of the municipality and the various roles. So is it going to be Catie first? And okay, and we have to figure out the spacing because we're crowded up here, but we'll sort this out. You're going to just relax for the moment. Okay, very good. Catie, please.
Okay. I guess I'm missing the picture, but it's okay.
No.
Pardon? Yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Randy, for inviting us to present this case. My name is Catie Burlando, and I work for ETIFOR. ETIFOR is a spin-off of the University of Padova in Italy. And today I'm going to tell you about a story about how Valsugana became the first destination certified solely according to GSTC criteria. And I'm sorry the picture here doesn't show because there was a nice picture of Artesella. ETIFOR is, as I said, our goal is to improve the value of nature through applied science, innovation, and good governance. We work through 3 different units. One of it is on local development and tourism. And for the past few years, we've been working in the Veneto region, which is where we have Venice as our prime example of where not to go. And for the how not to do tourism, and we've been working with the rural areas, trying to help with the organization of public-private partnerships. This is important because we've noticed that tourists demand more and more access to natural areas, and despite being the first tourist destination with a region in Italy, we don't feel that actually rural areas are so accessible perhaps to tourism. So as part of our work of working with the DMOs, we've been collaborating for the last several years with Valsugana. Valsugana is located in a neighboring region in Trentino Alto Adige. It's a DMO that just turned 15 years this year. And we often invite the director, Stefano Ravelli, to help us with the work that we do in starting up new destinations. Stefano Ravelli, in fact, was going to come here today to present with us, but he's not here because he's at the Digital Tourism think tank in Helsinki. And he actually just wrote to me saying that he presented the GSTC certification yesterday to over 150 destinations from all over the world. And he got a really good feedback. So I guess I'm talking to an audience that understands the GSTC, and he's sort of promoted it to a different audience. So that's why I'm here today. So what was our role? We've been, as we work with destinations, dealing with, organizational issues. We always say that the quality of a destination it's in organization, it's not in its resources, and we know this very well because we're in Veneto. We did research, and we came across the GSTC a few years ago, and we proposed it to Valsugana, and we said, we think that we found a standard that's internationally recognized, third-party certification, and we think you can do it. Is that, what do you think about it? So we invited, by the way, we had also discovered that Vireo was in the same city as us, in Padova. And so we talked to Luigi, and we went to visit Stefano and Valsugana, and we sort of did a pre-assessment to figure out if we could do it. Many of the pieces were in place, although of course when we asked the director about the waste management, he sort of looked at us and said, what? I'm not supposed to deal with waste. What's my role in it? So of course we explained that maybe others, but you have to be aware of it and go and assess what they're doing. So our work was we worked with the DMO to collect all the data for all the criteria and indicators, and then we developed a methodology to work with it's a vast area because there are 24 municipalities, but we developed several meetings. First of all, to present the GSTC and say, there's going to be an audit, this is what it is. And then we went systematically through the different criteria, asking, what were best practices, what were gaps. And we got very interesting pictures, also different pictures from both the public and the private sector. So what's been really interesting about this process is that we really see it as a process, as a dynamic process that enabled the DMO to meet with the community and really share what their goals, experiences, and best practices were, and to raise awareness about this idea of needing to continually improve. And one of the messages that carries through, which is the message that also the DMO Valsugana has been promoting for the last few, since its establishment, is that the community comes first. So whatever investment we do in sustainability is for the community, and the tourist will then benefit from it. So this was a very important message that was very much in line with how the DMO has been working, because all of their projects have been in view of stemming, young people from leaving the valley, creating employment. So of course this has always been the underlying process. So the DMO has made local companies more aware about sustainability issues. It has also realized in the process that it had companies that were way ahead in their sustainability thinking. For example, Mazzaglia, which is a company that produces jams, is aiming to have zero carbon footprint. So it's producing its own energy, it has recycling of water within site, it's dealing with all the packaging, and it's really working, it has been working for several years on this, and this is something the DMO sort of knew, but through this process was able to track specifically. Or Levico Acque, for example, they realized that they had a company serving only glass bottled water, and this company, because it has not been able to reach targets of zero carbon emissions, or has worked to compensate this. So there's been a lot of connection, with local realities outside of the tourism system. This has also been in terms of the agricultural sector. The DMO has actually been working with high altitude pastures, for example, through a program called Adopt a Cow that has helped to revitalize high level pastures. And public administration, so work that the DMO was carrying out with For example, associations helping people with disability access the lake. You know, they realized that these programs could be implemented even better. It was also collaborating with public administrations in the cleaning of lakes. And so all these projects that they were doing actually became important for their impact. And in view of the certification, this year they actually started a youth ambassador program where they trained 20 young people on their territory, on their initiatives, on the GSTC. And this summer they sent them around interviewing tourists, asking for their feedback, taking pictures. These are young kids that are from the area, and next year, you know, they'll grow to be aware of what resources they have. So I guess something very important is that the role of the DMO has changed as a result of certification. You know, Stefano still is not the one in charge of waste management, but realized that the law, that the laws and the way in which waste management or water use are managed are good in that area, and the DMO has become aware of that and has become aware of how tourism really has to account for all those different types of impacts. Of course, more can be done, and that's why the GSTC is it's an interesting process because it allows you to see it as a process and not as just getting the certification, but as the beginning of a new journey with higher awareness. Something that we've talked about, though, and this is something that we'll be discussing also with the GSTC, is how to support, how to give recognition and support to destinations that actually engage in this type of certification and that engage in this path. How to share their good practices. I guess this morning was said we don't have to invent the wheel, but really there's a lot of good projects happening in all the territories. And also something that we took home is the importance of encouraging on-the-ground technical and strategic support. I think in this case we were fairly lucky in that we had a destination that was, let's say, ready to be certified. It was already a very good example. We had Vireo, so we had a certification body close to us with whom we could discuss. And we were able to provide all the background support in order to build up to the audit. I'm mentioning the FSC here because the University of Padova more than 20 years ago helped establish an office for the FSC, and has actually, and this office has been providing the type of support that really opens the door then for certification bodies to come in and certified areas. So it's provided a lot of the information, awareness raising, and reaching out that has helped its growth. So I'm now letting Luigi can give his perspective on the process. Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you very much. Luigi, you'll stand, sit, crawl?
I stay here.
Very good.
Yeah. So we are all tired, so quite a difficult task for us to keep your brains with us. I'm afraid I don't have a presentation, and I will not give you any input about Vireo, what we do, who we are, etc. Because I want to try to achieve a more difficult and challenging target, which is staying focused on the topics suggested by Randy, which are benefits of destination certification, challenges, and some inputs about awards program or other systems in relation to certification. Before we start, I needed to clarify, sorry, not to clarify, but just a quick note on what means to me certifications. We have seen this word 5,000 times since the beginning of the conference this morning. In my view, the certification is the pure auditing system. So I will talk about certification, but please refer to just auditing. No support, no advice, no training, nothing. In my view, and what we do, certification begins when there is the audit. At least there is a pre-assessment, something that has been done with Valsugana, but nothing more. So benefits of certifications. I do believe certification is a sort of passport. It's a system for communicating something to someone else. It is a system for talking the same language. It brings this benefit only, in my view, if it is an international recognized and credible system. A system that allows people to recognize the same logo, the same label, everywhere in the world. This is my view, and I appreciate hundreds of people have a different opinion, but I do believe the main benefit is this one, so talking the same language. This year I could visit Valsugana. I can appreciate they are GSTC certified. Next summer 2021, I can visit another destination far away from Italy. I could find the same logo. This, in my view, has a very strong meaning. So I do believe this is the main benefit, talking the same language, system for communicating something in the same way. Challenges. Challenge number 0 is understanding which is the best certification for you or for us. You know better than me, certification is a jungle of labels, logos, and so on. So a destination or an hotel, first of all, needs to understand which is the right certification to achieve. But let's suppose someone has decided, and let's suppose there is the GSTC. Challenge number 1, facing a new standard, putting the standard on the table. Luckily, it is translated in several languages. But the first question I got from Valsugana, wow, fantastic, from where we start? It is quite long, so full of criteria. What do we do? So this is the first challenge. The second challenge, the standard includes new topics, as what Catie was telling us. Many topics and many criteria that generally are not considered or under control of destination manager. Waste, energy monitoring, water consumption, many new criteria. So this is a very important challenge. Challenge number 3, receiving audits. Getting certified is, I believe, something very, very, very new for the tourism sector in general. Yesterday I had a quick look at ISO statistics for the queen of all the environmental certification, the 14001. In 2018, the area hotels and restaurants, there are less than 2,300 certified organizations in the world, which is nothing compared to other sectors. So I believe facing an audit, meeting a certification body you have never seen before is something quite new for many hotels and for all the destinations. The last challenge, but I believe the most important one, is understanding that achieving a certification doesn't mean receiving economic benefits. It's not the end of the journey. It doesn't mean you will receive new clients, more customers, more tourists. It is just the beginning of the process. I believe letting destination managers understanding this point is quite challenging, probably the most difficult element. This is the real meaning, and we told this is the meaning several times since we started this morning. The last point, some inputs about award programs. Well, I like them, but I see some good points and some bad points, to be honest. Let's start from the last ones, bad points. Award programs, to me, sounds sound like having or putting in competition different hotels or destination, which is fine. But I do believe sustainability is a threshold. Is a threshold. Is something everyone shall achieve. So I don't really appreciate the idea that there is a sort of can I say competition in who is more sustainable. At the same time, I admit we are full of awards. There are awards for destinations, fine. There are awards for airlines. There are awards for French wines. There are awards for Italian cheeses and so on. There's an award for everything. So today, I do believe the value is not so strong as it was some years ago. At the same time, I do believe that many destinations can have limited resources for joining this competition, maybe for achieving this award. And what I really appreciate of this system is they are focused on continuous improvement. Okay, this is, I believe, something we should better clarify in the future in the GSTC criteria for destination and hotels. This goal-setting approach is quite useful, and at the same time, I do believe that good competition between certified destinations may help a lot, because can say, stimulate other destinations in joining the competition and maybe in winning some awards. And that's it. Thank you.
Guy, relax one moment. Catie, I have a question for you. At the end towards the end of your presentation, you had the comments about the more on-ground support. Was that more about technical information of certification and recertification, or was that content on operating sustainably? Could you clarify what you had in mind there?
It's easy to go. I think what we're thinking of is really a strategy. I mean, at this point we're thinking about Italy because that's the context that we're familiar with. But a strategy about sharing information on the GSTC to both destinations. I guess especially for destinations, that's what we're interested in, and also providing technical support to the destinations that want to prepare an audit. So we think one of the strengths of this this certification is that it is third-party recognized, and so the audit, as Luigi was mentioning, is an important moment, and it's important that it be independent and that it assesses all the criteria. But we think that it's difficult for destinations to have internal capacity. Some destinations may have, but even Valsugana, which is quite advanced, needed some support to be able to build the case that was then presented to the audit. So, and I guess in our case, one issue was data collection. So we collected all the data regulations for all of the criteria. But also the participatory aspect of it, which is something that the director does. He's constantly talking to both public and private administrations, but our support was useful in bringing sort of outside perspective to this and giving value also to the certification. So from our perspective, and I'm talking about our perspective as ETIFOR, we think that GSTC has great promise. We're interested in its dissemination, not just in terms of finding all the best destinations and certifying them, but we're already in the context that most of the destinations we're working in, we can see it's going to be a few years before they're ready, but already we're starting to present this as, you know, this is what you're looking at. So first, organize, you know, build your strategy, your products, but then know that you really have to start thinking about sustainability in all of your actions. So we're thinking about, a clear division between what the certifying bodies do, what other bodies we could be, other organizations could do it, but that in between really, we think it will really help the GSTC grow into a well-recognized, legitimate, and third-party certification accredited, as it was said, as you mentioned this morning.
Good, thank you. All right, Guy, your turn.
Good. Can I ask you to stand up, please? Can you ask you to stand up? Can you have a stretch? Have a stretch. Now find a partner, someone, and you need someone intelligent for this, okay? So you have to find someone intelligent. Okay, right. I'm going to go for Catie. I think she's more intelligent here, right? And you have to, one of you has to hold your hand up like this, and the other one has to do this, okay? I have to touch the hand there, and she has to catch my finger. Ready? Okay. Okay. Pull up, pull up, yeah, okay. And then you turn it around. Okay. And then you do it at the same time. This is... Look at this. It's fallen in my jacket pocket. Great. Okay, here we are. Good. No, that was it, really. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Good. Shift happens, doesn't it? Shift happens, right? Don't you have days like that, right? And it's exciting, isn't it? We live in this time where stuff is happening, shift is happening. We can see it, and many of you see that, and it's exciting. And as a traveler, when I was traveling around visiting great parks and great villages and great touristic destinations, and I could really see it happening. But in my world, which is the meetings and events world, I really didn't see that happening. In the big cities around the world, we had a big issue. Change wasn't happening. You'd have fantastic sustainable strategies, but they weren't happening in the big cities. And then in my world, in the events world, it really wasn't happening. And so myself and a group of, the capital cities in Scandinavia, we decided to do something about that. We decided to kind of create an initiative to really shift the sustainability of the meetings and events industry, starting out of Scandinavia. So we created a program. We started working on a strategy and education and capacity building. And then someone said, well, how do we know if we're there, if we're sustainable or not? So that was a really good question. So we said, well, we need to kind of measure that. We need some KPIs. So we decided to come up with an index, a set of indicators that would measure how well we're doing. It was so successful that we then rolled that out globally in 2016. And so today we're a destination movement. We consider ourselves a movement for change that really works to help cities create strategy and improve the performance of that strategy for the visitors' economy. So it works very much on leisure, but very much on that meetings and event strategy. Fully holistic. How do we obviously work on the social aspects? How do we work on environmental aspects? And really on the economic aspects, and how do we really move the sector for good? Our partners for this initiative are European Cities Marketing, which represents all of the DMOs of the major cities in Europe. It is IMEX Group, which is the biggest trade show for the meetings and events industry. It's the International Convention and Congress Association. MCI, which is the world's largest event management company, and my company called Gooby. And so we're out there to inspire, enable, and engage cities. We're at 60 cities at the moment, all around the world, and over, I can't remember last time we measured it, but about 150 million people live in these cities. So we try and really focus on the big issues here. And our benchmarking, and it's a benchmarking, it's not a certification, looks at the city in terms of its environmental and social impact. So we look and we benchmark qualitative and quantitative data about the city. So, do you have a recycling program? Great. You know, how much do you recycle? You know, do you have a climate change program? How much of your water is being processed? What are your carbon emissions per capita? How much green space do you have per capita? We then look at the social performance, equality, social justice, things like that. We then switch and look at the supplier performance of the hotels. What percentage of hotels have an eco certification, such as an EarthCheck or a Green Key? Does that destination have a sustainability certification, the DMO, like maybe an EarthCheck or a GSTC one or a Green Destination one? We look at how they're educating, how they're communicating, and what's in that. And you do that, and we then give you a ranking. This is the ranking from this year, a few months ago. And so here's our top 10. And so a bit like what you guys were mentioning, we very much play within this concept of collaboration and competition. So co-opetition, they call it these days, don't they? So, you know, we really use the power of competition to, you know, people pushing out there, especially big cities. There's so much competition between big cities. They're used to competing. They're really good at competing, and they find the index makes a difference and makes a change. And now we've seen it become a political issue. The mayors are watching this. It's up there with the world, the Economist index for their city, or their best places to stay index and other things like that. And then we really work a lot to sharing of data. We work with these cities to create an action plan. Most of these cities don't have a sustainable strategy for tourism. If they do, it's very basic. I think only 30-something% of these cities actually have a proper strategy with KPIs, which is a bit low, isn't it, really? And clear goals. And we only know one of them out of the 60 actually has science-based goals, which is Sydney. No one else has done it. No one else has done a really good carbon footprint of their city or a water footprint of tourism. I say carbon footprint of tourism of the city. Yeah? So there's a lot of areas that we can improve on. And so we really help them to get in action, just to start, look at the obvious things, look at the easy things. Not always to look 5 years down the line, but to look, you know, what are you doing this year, but strategically this year. Who are your partners? So we kind of focus on extreme collaboration, how you really get people together. And we use a lot of design type thinking to really look at the system, identify the behaviors and the systems that need to change, and then work collectively to create that change. We also believe in having a lot of fun, because really if you don't have fun, it's not there. So here's Elvis is in a house in this picture, and Elvis often comes out, because Elvis says, doesn't he, a little less conversation, a little more action, please. Come on, come on, come on. So we need a bit of Elvis time. So you know, this is what we do. We consult. We have a forum to share knowledge. We bring people together via an academy. The next thing we did is we really believe passionately in certification and what you guys are doing, what the GST stands for. But whenever we go to a city, we hear it's expensive, it's difficult. Oh my God, another form to fill in. I don't have time, I don't have the resources, everyone's calling me. So we really believe that benchmarking can be a path to certification. It can get you away from the conversation of certification. You get people benchmarking, get people into action, and then when they're kind of ready, you drop it on the table. It says, why don't you go to certification? Oh, it's too difficult, it's too complicated. I've said, well, actually, you're 62% there. Are we? Oh. Well, it's maybe not that difficult, is it? Well, maybe it's not. So then we throw it out to them, and we really, you know, we encourage them to then go the next step. So to make it even easier, we were embarking on a different project, which we launched today here, which is a partnership with EarthCheck and ourselves, where we're going to actually look at connecting our processes, and we will connect our systems. So at the right point, you press a button, and all the data that is in the index will go into the EarthCheck system. And then EarthCheck will then take off from where we've started and then take them through certification. So we believe this is a really interesting opportunity. It's a different approach. It's a data-driven approach. It's a science-based approach. And we think it can really accelerate. I have to say, as much as I love this man, I don't think EarthCheck is the only and the most fantastic or the best always certification in the world. He's going to beat me up now. But what I do believe is that through collaboration and work, we can make this really a lot easier and cheaper for cities. And that's one of the key things. So that's the kind of first thing that we can do. What I do realize is that, like all of us, we don't always have the solutions. And the EarthCheck team and with David and the Institute and other things, there's a lot of knowledge and science and tools that we don't have. So that allows us to work with cities and countries. So about 2 minutes ago, I found out we won a really big project with a big European country to roll out a whole research study on carbon impact of tourism, and then come up with a series of tools and processes for the visitors economy, for tourism and meetings and events. So we're in action, and it's pretty exciting, really, isn't it? So this is our white paper we just released a few weeks ago that shares a lot of best practices from the cities. It's cool. There is no planet B. So, okay, take care.
Well, thank you very much. You can see why we put him at the last, late in a long day. So thank you, Guy. So what I heard from you, Guy, is that the scoring system is much more approachable than getting to certification. It's a stepping stone, and it's easier concept to get. It sounds like you have a pretty strong feeling that fairly high percentage would be interested in certification. Is that fair to say?
I don't know.
We don't know yet.
I mean, that's
okay.
We've had a lot of cities that say we're ready for certification. Which way do we go? What do we do? Which ones are out there? Yeah. So we always share that with them, and we're carrying. So these are the options. And then we say these are all the options, and here's our option with EarthCheck.
Albert, do you want to comment on this issue from awards to certification? And I mean, you spoke to it, but let's hear it a little bit more.
Well, maybe also to clarify that we have started before even our certification program with a benchmarking program with data that we collected about 2,000 destinations, and we have been trying to interest a lot of destinations to actually actively input to that, and the interest was not so big because everybody felt like, oh, we may not end up in the top 10, and within a group of 2,000, you're easily not even in the top 100. So that is, so I'm actually amazed that this is actually come off the ground in this way, and it has really potential. Also, we have the database still of 2,000 destinations as a reference for actually to rate indicator performance on 100 indicators for smaller destinations. So I think we're gonna sit down together and see how that could be working also, not for big cities, but also for smaller destinations. So that's one. About awards, yeah, you mean about Luigi's comment? Well, it's fine. I mean, we try to develop. We have tried to develop a program that makes it attractive for destinations to participate in a process of improvement that is checked by independent ways, an independent auditor, in terms of not only reaching the 100% compliance, but also lower levels to keep the interest and the motivation going. I mean, if Luigi doesn't like it, I mean, he's free not to use it, and that saves him on rewards. So I mean, we are going to continue to do it because we are not allowed to say if there is 80% compliance to call that a certification. You can't say this is gold certified. So what else should we call it? I mean, if somebody has an idea, I'll be happy to adopt that. But this is for us an important way to keep the motivation and the process going. So.
Okay, good, thank you. So I've an operational question, and then we're going to turn to the floor and Slido, so thank you. I see several questions here. And this is about certification. So I'm going to just ask this to Albert and Stewart very briefly. Operationally, when you get through certification, has that been more, as I think about different agencies of government, has that been more from the Department of Tourism? Is it the Department of Environment to take lead? Who's really driving it and gets the others organized and motivated and pushing along? Do you see any patterns, or is it different every time?
It's actually different every time, and what strikes us usually is that it comes from either the sustainability coordinator or the vice mayor for sustainability or environment, sometimes tourism, and sometimes also the economy division or the marketing people, and that there is usually no connection between them, so they usually haven't talked about it together, and that makes that makes it sometimes difficult to start and get even the awareness to these people that they have to sit together and approach this together. So, but I don't see a trend in a way that that comes from either way. But I do see a trend of increasing interest in certification and in independently recognized improvement.
Good, thank you. Stewart, could you comment on the same question?
So let me draw you a picture of sustainability in tourism. It's a beautiful bell-shaped curve, right? So my clients tend to be leaders for a reason, because they have a passion at a board. The board understands governance and the board understands risk. And some of the largest companies are all about the owners who want to do the right thing for the planet. That's who we work with. I'd love to have the big hump in the middle, but that's a little bit, I guess the jury's still out in that regard. And so from my perspective, it's still very much on leadership, on brand recognition, and on integrity. And I think the leaders get this. They get that it's a core part of their brand statement, and that's what tends to be why they come to us. We'd love the rest of the hump to come through, but I don't think it's being market-driven just yet. But there are indications in some cities, and we've done a partnership with the City of Sydney, where the City of Sydney as a leader has said, and it's a carrot and a stick. The carrot is if you don't come and you're not, then there's we'll give you an incentive to come, and the stick is if you're not, it's going to cost you. So that's just on the horizon, and I think that's going to come with all the big cities.
It just strikes me that it's probably quite often the case that just somebody's motivated from some department, and then they get others excited, right? So we don't have enough patterns yet. So good, thank you. Well, let's turn to slide O in the audience. Thank you for many questions here. I don't have this sorted by vote, so I guess not too much tallying. So we'll start from the top. So Richard Denman asks, on what topic do you find that destinations most frequently fall short of the requirements and criteria, and has certification made them change? Anybody want to take that?
Data. We have a need for good, rich data, and I'd love to think that it was always there, but it's not. And so sometimes you have to develop it over a number of years. So from year one, you do your best to pull it together, and you get better each year in terms of understanding the platforms to deal with.
It's definitely data, but it's also that the involvement of the business sector is too low, and the destination management people and even the marketing people haven't even thought about that there is an important responsibility for them. So they realize too late that that these indicators, these criteria, in which they have to involve and encourage the business sector to also make their contribution to issues like energy, waste, pollution, that needs to be started by the destination management bodies. So I think these things stand out, these two.
I think it's actually before there. We've noticed and statistically looked at is that the cities are really bad at getting good SMART goals and the KPIs to track that. Lovely visions, we reduce waste, but how much waste by when and how. And so it's such an opportunity to set those, but have some big, hairy, audacious goals that we don't know how to get yet. So we need a few more moonshots.
In relation to most difficult topics, in accordance to my experience, I would say environmental.
It's you, isn't it? It's me.
I would say environmental ones. When Catie was telling you the manager, the Valsugana manager was quite surprised when we started asking questions about waste management, water, energy in the valley, in the destination. The answer was, okay, it's not up to me. They are for sure well managed, but it's not up to me. So in my view, most difficult topics, the environmental ones. Yeah.
I want to comment on this myself. We do some destination assessments at GSTC. We only take the job if the destination we feel isn't the beginning of their journey. We feel they're farther along, we send them to you guys. So our data skews very much to developing countries. And waste management is an enormous problem. Very frustrating for them. And often, many times of hopelessness in developing countries. And especially because it is coming from the tourism department, where they just don't feel that they have the political clout to make impacts on change. But, you know, I spoke this morning, you know, I guess it's been a long day because Albert referenced something I said this morning. He said something Randy said yesterday, so I guess that's an indication. You noticed? Yeah. I wasn't the only one who noticed that.
We had meetings with you.
Long ago. And I was emphasizing the award winners. What's a critical success factor is the compliance with A2 of having the council and the stakeholders. And so I have to believe that's a key area of falling short, is that ongoing stakeholder engagement, and you're nodding in agreement. Yeah. So some environmental issues, waste management, but that organizational management structure. Fair enough. So what else do we have?
Randy, if I can
Yes.
just add a point to
Please.
that. I guess not in terms of Valsugana, but something that we see in the Italian context, where actually it's true that environmental outcomes in the north could be better, but they're not bad. What we find the trouble is really in the organizational management, and that's why we found so interesting when we encounter the GSTC how the first criteria, you know, it's right up on organization, because the most difficult thing is to coordinate between public and private partners when you're developing a tourism, because a destination, you know, tourism, we actually don't talk about it as a sector, we talk about it as a system that really connects to all the different sectors and areas. So I think part of the strength of the GSTC is its focus on organization and management as its first, you know, as a key priority.
Okay, I'm going to keep going down in sequence of they've arrived, because none of them have too many more votes than the others. So the next one was, oh, they did change though. Anonymous, what are the key attributes, indicators that destinations might use to start an impact trend assessment? You see that one? What are the key, oh, it's off the screen for you now, but it was up early and I like it. What are the key attributes? Listen to me, you can't see it. I'm gonna stay on this track because I'm stuck now. So. What are the key attributes and indicators that destinations might use to start an impact trend assessment? Starting point on assessment. Key indicators. Similar to what we were just talking about?
I always look at this in two ways. I look at footprints and handprints. So footprint, we know that, carbon, water, waste, over-tourism indicators, things like that. But then handprints, what is tourism bringing to the city? Coming from the events world, we really look at other things. So how much knowledge does an event and the events industry bring to a city? How much investment? How much acceleration and innovation, things like that. So we look at both areas and we design KPIs around both of those side of things.
Okay.
I do believe at the very beginning, for example, having a list of attractions that are inside the destination. I remember that this was something easy to manage, but challenging at the beginning. So when then they have been asked, do you have a list of your attractions? Do you know what your destination, your valley offer? The answer was, yes, no, well, who knows, so probably. So the good point for starting was understanding what they had to offer, considering that many attractions, natural attractions, were not under direct management of the Valsugana destination, but probably were under management of city councils, So understanding what there was inside the valley was the first step, I believe.
So I guess the key thing for us is destination health, and this is a comment that Dave Simmons normally talks about, but you can't have a sustainable tourism industry in an unsustainable destination. So the first thing we look for is the hygiene of that. It's the health of the destination, and normally it's pretty easy to have a look at water, waste, energy and community. You come up pretty clear about how the health is. That's the basic stuff, and that's where we always start.
We usually start with the SWOT analysis, which we call tourism impact assessment, to identify the most important concerns, but also opportunities, but also the possible threats of tourism development and growth. But that starts, like in Luigi's case, with what are your values? Basic values, natural, cultural, social, economic, maybe. And what are indeed your attractions? Maybe that is one group, that is values may also be an attraction. So yes, we do start also with that inventory, and that includes also health issues. Yes, indeed. So that's in that sense we I think we agree. And because the baseline assessment is what is from that you start with creating a vision, and then a strategy and an action plan. So it is you have to start from that way, I think.
Very good. Well, I'm going to change from chronological order now to there has been voting from the audience. So we'll go to majority will. I'm not Donald Trump. Question to Randy. Just by chance. Have you considered creating one logo for all GSTC accredited standards for global awareness? Yes, but this is also new that the general numbers are quite small. We do have on our website the locations of the destinations in the world that have been certified by a certification body that GSTC has accredited. And so those numbers are not huge, so we're not making a big to-do about it. I think that, you know, it's still relatively new. And so as awards and scoring systems drive more people into it, then that's something we can talk about and promote more, but we do have it on a map on our website. Then next, what arguments work best with DMOs and their political masters to start and continue their sustainability journey today, not sometime in the future? Their political masters, what gets them going?
I've really changed in the last 6 months. It's risk now.
Reputational risk?
Reputational risk. I mean, for a lot of the big cities, you've obviously, well, 67% of our cities have over-tourism, okay, already. So, and that's flipping, and we've seen what's happened as the communities rise. So that's one risk you put on the table. The second rise is around meetings and events. You know, that's bringing in hundreds of millions or billions of dollars of economic impact to these big cities. Greta is posing a risk to that, right? And the entire business model of events is around flying, right? So if you put the numbers in front of political people right now and say you need to move, they're moving.
So I want to add something to that. I mean, the reason, you know, Guy, we've been speaking for a few years now, just trying to figure out how can we all collaborate. And so there's two things that I've really liked about what you're doing, this benchmarking and scoring, your background in data and IT. These are fabulous things, and so that's all very exciting. But another piece of this is that I tend to think that we in our community on sustainable tourism, we skew towards leisure travel. Someone else mentioned that today, I think Javier did. And whyever that is, I think it is. And you, with your background at MCI and in the convention world, I think it's quite fascinating that I feel like you've got the ear of the municipalities more than leisure travel, because if a municipality has invested in a convention center, it's big asset, major money to build it, to maintain it, so taxpayers and the media and the finance department, the treasury of the city is asking the mayor and everybody all the time, why is this thing losing money or whatever? So I think that's quite fascinating. And we've also had conversations amongst ourselves is that I think it's just sad that business travel and leisure travel are so separated in municipalities. And I think we should bring it all together, more of the visitor economy. So I'd be interested in kind of reactions to those thoughts. Maybe start with Guy, and if anybody else wants to chime into this issue of, am I right? Is it because of the capital investment of the convention center, you have a little bit of an advantage getting the attention of people to work on your scheme over leisure travel?
There's many things. I think first of all, with the phase we're in, you know, so for the last 15 years, business, I'm not going to call it business tourism because we don't call that, meetings and event sector, has been fighting to separate ourselves from leisure tourism, right? Been renaming, it's been moving out departments. We've been trying to get our you know, people in the economic development part of the city or the country, and leisure's over there. We don't want anything to do with tourism. We want a bit over here. So that's the first thing that's been happening. In the last 2 or 3 years, it's now started to come back again underneath the visitors' economy. So we're starting to see that especially in Europe. In other places, especially the States, it's really not happening like that yet. So that's the first thing. The second, coming back to you, is we move huge sums of money and huge numbers of people, but it's in more of a concise time and space, you know. So Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, said 129,000 now, isn't it? 1,000 people come in for that. So we get everyone in a room, and it's quite easy to kind of get those people focused around one big event that then you can use that event to catalyze other change. So in the case of Barcelona, we're now looking at really the impact of events and what is the strategy the city could have to really focus on what events can you attract into a city that drive change, whether it's in the healthcare sector, IT sector, whether it's around community engagement, policy, equity, quality, you name it. You can really hand-pick your strategy and create cluster strategies. And that kind of positive approach to growth is what makes mayors listen. And the clever stuff now is how do we collect that to citizen sentiment so that the citizen becomes involved in what events are being attracted and obviously what type of tourism is attracted, but really getting the citizen involved in a much deeper way. And that's the really exciting stuff at the moment, and that's new. We're working on 3 or 4 projects around the world, and that's kind of leadership stuff.
Quick comment on that?
So the reality for the last 20 years is that's how it's been. The business market has been the leading edge. Leisure market has always been hedonistic, and it's not driven by sustainability. Business always has had a consciousness, and that consciousness now sits in boardrooms. So that's exactly where I see it being driven.
Okay, and now the most important filter of all is my boss asking the question. How important is, and it's not on the screen anymore, so you have to listen again, everybody, and then we're going to go home, so listen carefully. How important is sensitizing, where do you go? How important is sensitizing residents on changes that will ultimately benefit the destination but might encounter resistance? For example, closing city centers to traffic and pedestrian zones. Got it.
So we've been arguing for some time that you need to have a consumer sentiment, and you need to have a visitor sentiment, and you need to have a business sentiment fully gauged at all times, because in the big cities it's moving so rapidly, particularly with pressure points, hotspots in cities. And our weakness is that we don't have an adequate measure on how comfortable both business and the local community are at any one point in time. So I think the finger on the pulse is so critical, and that's, I think, a weakness that we need to pick up.
Yeah, I copy that. There's also, of course, indeed, in cities like Amsterdam, various problems, like how do we get the less nuisance from cars, and it's difficult to get them out, but the city council is still managing that. And also in terms of, let's say, changing apartments from residential to the shared rental economy, that number has quickly increased. So although there's a lot of people complaining about that and increasing rents for people that have not, there's also sort of endorsement for that process for people who have, because if you have an apartment, you can make more money, and also, yeah, there's more people benefited from that. So it's the longer you leave the program, the process untackled, the more difficult it will get to to get control on it.
I ran a workshop on Monday for all the CEOs of the DMOs of the capital cities in Europe, and they're all focused now on how do we get the citizen engaged. Okay. Barcelona and Berlin are probably the leaders at the moment. They've created citizen councils to really bring together a real representation of the city and present their views and really kind of put that governance in. So yeah, there's stuff happening.
Final thought from Valsagana? And then we'll stop.
I think we have to think about tourism as a common good. And the way we approach, in some cases, we've encountered issues like that can potentially create conflict. And sometimes we've worked in terms of maybe delaying those issues to after an election, to not raise it as an election point, depending on council. That was a recent case. And I mean, the best approach we've come up with that we're working with is participatory approaches. And this means that maybe sometimes you can't implement that. Maybe you avoid implementing something too conflictual because otherwise you break up a process, but you try to work around it and to raise awareness about the importance of it. So I think it's important to see, the introduction of these changes as part of the process, and the more you build, I mean, with the university also we work a lot on the issue of social capital. The more you build trust, relationship networks, trust between public and private, which is not always there, then it means you can address those issues, maybe not now because it's not the right time, but maybe later you'll be able to implement it. So I think it's good to keep sort of like not everything now, but to keep this sense of process and try to, we always say we can fight, but we have to fight with a method. So we try to to work around issues that can bring us together as a way to then address more complicated issues once we've created this sense of trust.
Good. Well, thank you all. It's been a very long day. For Albert, it's been an extremely long day. And it's dinner time and buses and all that. So I'll turn it over to the MC. But let's just remain seated as she closes, and then you'll talk about buses and all that. So thank you very much, panel. It was a very enlightening experience.